by Wallace Shawn.
That's my copy. This is the master. This is the master copy. I think this is the one.
Master copy has
It's not marked. Sorry.
Well,
Glitch.
I can.
Could be this. I've been handed this paragraph. It's going to be the shortest of the short passages. These events took some kind of toll on me. And the next day I managed to sleep through the 9 a.m. panel, the one on biography. I got to the Thresidor Center as everyone was leaving for lunch. In the crowd, I immediately spotted my dear friend Luba, who is my height, with huge, sad, gray eyes and an enormous quantity of extremely curly hair. "Alishka!" she exclaimed when I manifested myself. "I missed you all morning." "I didn't wake up," I said. "How was it?" "It was amazing. But I wrote everything down for you." She pulled from her bag one of the Soviet-style graph paper notebooks for which she suffers various inconveniences to keep herself supplied. We sat under a tree, and she read to me her copious notes.
Okay, now we need someone who will be inspired by that wonderful reading to be a volunteer. Thank you. No, just, you can stay in your seat and just raise your hand.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's James Wood! James Wood, the literary critic, has written us a letter critiquing us.
The statement that opened this magazine's first issue was both minatory and elliptical. It had serious and sensible things to say about a certain strain of negative reviewing in the book pages of the New Republic, but it was itself a wholly negative attack on negativity. There I was waiting for the sweets of positivity, for the proposals and manifestos and counter-arguments, only to find the merest dusting of Kitty's sugar. And what can we do with 36 weeks left on our discount subscription to the New Republic? Forget about it. We're young yet, so we'll go and be among the young.
That's a quote.
End quote. Perhaps this was ironically intended. A few lines earlier, there had emerged the stronger hint of a proposal. Quote, "If only they had allowed more positive individuality, cultivated something new, and still kept an old, dignified adherence to the great capital tradition, running continuously to them as they hoped from the New York intellectuals whose ashes were in urns in the New Republic vaults as if they were anywhere. This was a magazine that began with Edmund Wilson." End quote. Positive individuality, the cultivation of something new, anything as long as it is something, a connection to the great tradition, and youth. One of the editors, Keith Gesson, could be found on the last page of the magazine writing, "It is time to say what you mean." Indeed, but what do you mean? The editors had unwittingly proved the gravamen of their own critique, that it is easier to criticize than to propose.
It goes on and on and on. The next reader is Philip Connors. We have had a few books come out of the pages of N+1, one of them being by Elf Batuman, whose book The Possessed came out earlier this year. We highly recommend it. And another one is Philip Connors' book, which will be published next year by Echo. It's called Fire.
On September 11th, 2001, just as I finished my breakfast, I received a call from a friend who knew I lived without a TV. She told me, in a voice racked with panic, that the World Trade Center towers had been hit by airplanes. I put on my suit jacket, left my apartment, and ran to take a subway to work. I was on journalistic autopilot. There was a big story. I was within reach of the story. It was right across the street from my workplace, and therefore I had a professional obligation to get there, even if I usually copy edited pieces about theater and books. Partway to the office, my train stalled and didn't move for an hour and a half. Since we were stuck underground, we had no way of knowing the severity of the situation downtown, and when at last we were discharged from the train at Union Square, I continued the journey to the office on foot. In Chinatown, the police had cordoned off the streets. No one was allowed any farther, not even people with press credentials, although as a copy editor, I had none. The towers in the distance were swathed in a cloud of black smoke. My mind, still stuck in a news vacuum, couldn't comprehend that they no longer stood, though in fact they'd fallen an hour earlier. I did know that if I was truly intent on getting to the office, I had but one choice. I would have to re-enter the subway system and walk through the tunnel. The entrance to the Franklin Street station was blocked with yellow police tape. I looked at the campaign posters for the mayoral primary, taped to the railing above the stairs, and thought that if I crossed that police line, there would be no one to rely on thereafter but myself. What else was I going to do? Go back to my apartment and listen to the radio? Sit in a bar and watch TV? I lifted the tape, descended the stairs, and in a last gesture towards civilized norms, swiped my Metro card instead of jumping the turnstile. No trains were running. No clerk was in the token booth. I waited a few moments to see if a train or an MTA worker would appear, but there was only an otherworldly quiet. With no one around to stop me, I lowered myself onto the tracks and began walking through the tunnel, creeping through the dark, careful to avoid touching the third rail. Not even the squeak of a rat marred the silence. It would be the only time I ever heard nothing in New York. 10 blocks later, when I emerged into the light of the Chambers Street station, the platform was coated in dust, and ahead in the tunnel I heard water rushing with a sound like a waterfall. A couple of cops were in the station, hanging around the token booth. I waited until they wandered off, and then I climbed the stairs to the street. I emerged a couple of blocks north of the towers, or at least where the towers had been. The streets were covered in ash and office paper. A cop stood alone in the middle of the street, watching a burning building, which I later learned was World Trade Center number 7. I walked over and stood next to her, both of us mesmerized. After a couple of minutes, she looked at me. "That building's probably gonna go," she said. "You might want to get out of here." She didn't order me to leave. She seemed to assume I probably wouldn't. She merely offered it as a suggestion, one among a series of options. Take it or leave it. I picked up a discarded dust mask, put it on my face, and began to make my way around the smoking rubble, through streets flooded with greenish-yellow water, or ankle-deep in fine gray powder. After crossing the West Side Highway, I entered the World Financial Center complex. The Winter Garden's glass roof was shattered in places, and the palm trees in the courtyard were pallid with ash. All the shops were empty. I climbed the emergency fire stairs in World Financial Center building number 1. No one was there. The office had long been evacuated and was now, at least on our floors, coated in a thin, gritty film blown in through shattered windows, though the computers still ran on the power of a backup generator. It was one of the most unnerving moments of my life, standing in that empty newsroom, wondering where everyone was, hoping none of my colleagues had been hurt or killed, all those computers humming with no one in front of them.
Phil Connors. So far we've been hearing polemics and memoirs. In issue 4 we had a fiction symposium, and in that symposium we published the excellent stories of Rebecca Schiff.
Okay, so where am I? Okay, I made a couple of changes since the story was written. Okay. There were film majors in my bed. They talked about film. There were poets, coxswains, guys trying to grow beards. Kids get really scared if their dad grows a beard, I said. Finally, I had an audience. I helped a pitcher understand the implications of his team's hazing ritual. I encouraged indecisive dancer anthropologists to double major. When a guy apologized for being sweaty, I got him a small towel. I made people feel good. Then I took a break. Then I forgot that I was taking a break. Spring was here. Jake was here. Also Josh. One dancer anthropologist dropped anthropology, just did dance. He danced with honors. Mazel tov, I said. The bed moved. Movers moved it. Movers asked what my dad did, why he wasn't moving the bed. New guys came to the bed. New guys had been in the Gulf War, had been bisexual, had taken out teeth, had taken out ads. Musical types left CDs with their names markered on. I kept a pile. I was careful not to smudge them, scratch them. Scratch that, I wasn't careful. So many musicians in this city, I observed, topless. Boxer shorts were like laundry, even on their bodies. Guys burrowed down for not long enough, popped up, smiled. Did I have something? Did I have anything? I did. Afterwards, cell phones jingled. Bebop, mariachi medley, chicken dance, die alone.
We run book reviews in the magazine. Sometimes the book review becomes something much more than that. And that's when we're happiest with our book review section. Megan Falvey, a sociologist,